Morning Talk with Rowena Baird. We put the good in good morning. On SAFm, South Africa's news and information leader.
On our SMME feature this morning, we speak to Mr. Mark Beets, General Manager Business Development at Intellect. We're talking to him about his views and insights on methods and processes businesses should begin to look at as a means of surviving and being successful. Mr. Beets, it's a great pleasure. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
And where are the answers? Are they all technology-based? Is that where the answers lie?
I don't think so. I think quite a disruptive force at the moment is around processes. We're in a very innovative cycle at the moment, and it's really about how you embrace the change at the moment. Technology is certainly one of the easiest at the moment, the most highlighted ways of reinvigorating your business.
All right, and maybe talk about the issue, the concept of disruptions, market disruptions. I'm not too sure if I understand it correctly. Explain it for me.
Well, disruption is a quite a buzzword at the moment. I think everyone's picking it up on it at the moment. Every conference I go to, everyone looks to disrupt their marketplace. Disruption is in itself a concept of how you look to change the market. The easiest examples, obviously, the Ubers of the world and things like that, where you're taking a certain market segment away from a traditional type system. So, for instance, metered taxis were always out there. Uber looked to disrupt the market by introducing a technology application which made it convenient and easy. So disruption is really about shaking things up, is really about embracing new ways of servicing your client base.
So it's not about the same old anymore. Same old out the window.
Very definitely not. I think same old has its own problems, and certainly same old has a place. Most corporates and companies are quite risk averse. For good reason. You don't want to disrupt health and safety, for instance, but you might want to look to disrupt the way that you promote health and safety in environment. So yes, very definitely there are ways of changing the old, and getting over that red tape, I think, is probably the biggest problem these days.
And the red tape usually is accompanied with the traditional way of doing business, the same old that we're talking about.
Very much so. And it's probably one of the biggest problems we come into in our technology environments, in our software development environments, what Intellect actually does, is that we align ourselves with very innovative type of companies. And they've got over that big wheel theory. They actually accelerate that wheel very quickly and break the red tape. You have to be in that innovative, disruptive space. You have to look at, are we going to go through the 3-month tenders and assigning lots of money? And it's not about that anymore. It's about really your process of how you get into the innovative curve.
And disrupting that space is about thinking out of the box, isn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah.
So not only is it about 3 clicks away from hailing a taxi, it's about the way that you service both internally, your staff base, your company processes, and the outward-facing environments. And really servicing your clients is possibly the expectation these days. I want an app that I can service my portfolios or banking and things like that. That's not disruptive. Disruptive is about embracing new change and being innovative in that space where you're shaking it up and saying, we're going to take on a bit of risk. We're going to fail during the process multiple times. We're going to fail quickly, but the result will be embraced by a larger audience than was existing.
But disruptive is such a negative word, isn't it? It's got so many negative connotations to it, but it's actually a positive concept that you're talking about.
Especially in our space, I think industry disruption, it has a negative connotation, and you will get the people who shy away from it for good reason. Again, there are tried and proven methods for doing things. Disrupting is in that space where you are introducing something new. People don't like change. But when the change is proven, when you can have that extra convenience, the adoption rate is phenomenal. People ramp up so quickly and everyone's on board. And then you'll find industry, their response is unfortunately sometimes negative. They try and stop this process. You're taking share away from them, and they try and impede that change. Rather than embrace it and quickly catch up and produce their own methods, they try and shut it down.
And that's why many businesses would shy away from disruptions. It's that fear of change.
Very much. And these these businesses will lose market share. That's the bottom line. It's unfortunate. There are up-and-comers, and the entrepreneurial environment that we have in South Africa, and in South African business, small business, is positioned at a tipping point where if you're not on that disruptive curve as a big corporate, someone's going to start taking away a piece of your pie.
But will they lose market share, though, or will there always be the kind of clientele that requires the traditional ways of doing things? I mean, there are still people who want to hail a taxi in the way that we know.
Yes. I think it's very much a generation thing. So the new generations are online. They're hyper-connected. They are looking at better ways of interacting with legacy and traditional brick-and-mortar businesses. Retail's a prime example of how things have changed. Online retail is so simple these days. It's not disruptive. It's serving an existing another sales channel. But the new generation, I think, will come up, and that is your new market. Yes, you will get the people who still want to fax.
Yes.
Or
companies that require you to send a fax.
Yes, and why?
Yeah.
If it's legible with a cell phone camera and you can get through the FICA process with 3 clicks, do it. That is certainly a process disruption. I think there still needs to be a core principle inside your organization around embracing innovation. And one of the other buzzwords is innovation hubs. So many corporates are jumping on innovation hubs and quickly creating an environment where it's safe to fail, it's safe to innovate and be creative. And that's very important. Embracing that type of higher risk, potentially short-term low returns, with the ultimate goal of having a disruptive application or technology or a principle which you can reabsorb into your organization is fantastic to see.
Talking this morning about how you can embrace disruptions in your organization, and it's a positive phenomenon. There's nothing negative about disruptions because they take your business to another level. Our guest is Mr. Mark Bates, General Manager, Business Development at Intellect. Taking your calls, 0891 104 207. SMS is 234701. Very smart use of the word intellect. You played on that in the name of the company. Why was it called Intellect?
Intellect was born in a engineering faculty at Beets University, and that combined with the type of people that we employ. We only employ graduates with the relative degrees, computer science, engineering, financial orientation, those type of degrees. And we found that Intellect in our ethos has always stuck to that principle. Only graduates, only the professionals. And as such, Intellect was born.
Yes.
We've been very successful to date. We continue on a tremendous hiring curve. Your previous interview was regarding graduates. This year we took on 30 graduates in January, which is phenomenal for us. 10% of our company in one day.
Wow, very good.
So we have, at the same time, looked at disrupting our own internal process. And this is important in... we had the traditional processes. We had the traditional ways of handling staff. And for the second time running, we've won the Deloitte's Best Company to Work For and received the highest merit. Our staff are really... it's all about our staff, the way we communicate and the flat structures that we have there. And the principle of surround yourself with very intelligent people, you tend to up your game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is something that we are the technology experts that we can then go to businesses and say, let's look at your process. Let's look at how we can optimize, how we can make your enterprise system embrace a new market or disrupt an existing market or grab a new market share. And that's where we're at the stage. We're seeing this burgeoning of maybe internal entrepreneurial principles within legacy corporates.
Talk about the importance of, because you say it's important that businesses first direct the principles of this disruption movement inward toward themselves. And as part of that process, they engage with their employees on a one-on-one, and we've just spoken about that. What's the value there? I
think it's so easy to get stuck in the rigmarole of business as usual, of getting stuck in processes of paper-based. An example I use in my article is around submitting a leave form. these should be, again, a 2-click process to submit. So internally disrupting is about embracing better ways of doing business. What that affords you is the time and ability to then look at strategic focus, to look at innovating ideas instead of getting stuck in that grind. It really gives you an empowerment to lift your head up off your desk and look at something different. And that's just really down to the simplest automation procedures you can think about. Developing a quick system for your staff, loyalty programs or such for your staff, which reward them immediately and not just wait for the points to accumulate at the end of the month. Those type of feedback systems or very tight closed feedback systems are becoming the expectation of the new generation coming through. I want immediate gratification.
Because we live in this world of immediate gratification, don't we?
Very much so. And it's driven out of when you look at your phone and there's a notification icon there, you want to click on it. There's a psychology about filling a need, about wanting to be engaged at a different level than just going to work, standing on the machine line. You want to engage with that person to understand their aspirations, their career, and how you can meet them and how you can engage with them to push them up. And I'm talking about staff here. It's really a different discussion that we used to have previously, which was, sit, do your job and move on. Very industrial age. Now we get into this high engagement factor with the CEO. If you don't have a direct line to the CEO, there might be a problem. And I'm saying this is small, medium. Obviously, there's the place where the CEOs are at a different echelon, and for a good reason again. But it's nice in the SME to have that direct line, to be able to walk in the office and have a joke or have a beer with your line managers.
And it also boosts morale and it increases and improves productivity, I'm sure. So there are many, many benefits to that.
Very much so. And you'll find that once, and again, at Intellect, we're continuously learning. And we're not saying we're perfect at it, and it's great to keep learning, keep challenging ourselves. You look at underpinning certain programs, your training, your social, all of these, tying them together, because you'll find everyone has their own interests. I mean, that's obvious to most, but not to all. And that work-life balance, I think, is getting a bit blurred these days. People work very hard. Specifically in South Africa, we have to work very hard. We have to pull up our socks. So take all the stress of the rest of their job out the way. Take the fact that salaries and things like that are transparent, so that everyone understands their position. They don't have to worry about those stress. They can focus on the work and their life. It's again just taking that stress away from them to enable them to go in a better direction.
Now, in this age of technology, and given everything that you've told us, can businesses still afford to run their affairs in old traditional ways, or would you say that's business suicide?
I think there's an element of necessity. You want to hedge your bets and not put everything in one pot. It is very important for companies to keep doing what they do well, but at the same time, if you're not looking at disrupting your market, someone else will. Traditional business exists for a reason, and they are successful for very good reasons. There is a certain percentage of that business which should be focused always at an R&D or an innovative fund, which allows for new products, which allows for new ways of embracing your staff or interacting with your staff. And these engagements and these type of investments in R&D type segments of your company are not the whole, they're not the all, but they will produce something which should be absorbed and quickly, rapidly embraced by the traditional business.
Taking calls, please do call us or send your views and your thoughts on what we are talking about, business disruptions. Mr. Mark Bates is General Manager, Business Development at Intellect. Our telephone number is 0891 104 207. SMSs to 34701. Tweets at SAFm Radio.
Rowena Baird on SAFm.
In conversation with Mr. Mark Bates and talking about business disruptions. Now, in disrupting your business, obviously technology is key, but it's also ever evolving. So how would you suggest small businesses keep up with the evolution of technology?
We work on a principle of what we call Agile development. It's very key to work in very short, bite-sized chunks. We generally, when we deal with clients that are on a very quick, innovative curve, we work on what we call 2-week sprints. Within those 2 weeks, you need to have something demonstrable to the client. And this is a core principle that's not only applicable to software, but what that does is allows you to change direction after every sprint. You can embrace change rather than working on the old tender system where you're pitching for 3 years worth of work and you're working to every full stop. We embrace change by allowing the client a certain amount of sway. I'm not saying all the time, to say, well, this week our business needs to add a new idea. And we say, okay, let's explore that a bit further, plan it for the next sprint, and then iterate. So you might not like the color of a button on the screen or the way that your system flows. You iterate very quickly and you release very quickly. So you'll see application updates all the time on your phone. They follow this type of principle. They are monitoring the way that you interact with the phone or the application. And they try and make it better and quicker. And every governing principle of technology is heading in this direction. And we're finding that those are the type of clients that we engage with. Certainly at an enterprise level, we tend to steer away from the smaller markets. It's very difficult to find funding in South Africa for innovation. But for the bigger clients that are on this curve, it's very nice to have that engagement and more communication, open communication on a fortnightly basis with our clients.
Let's speak to Sipho Mpumalanga. Good morning. Welcome.
Morning to you. What I'm trying to find out from your guest is these graduates that normally they are actually working with, do they, in their course, are they given to understand the bigger picture of the business? Because more often than not, what I find out about employees in particular is that they don't grasp the overview of the entire business. They are like people who are just coming to make a cut, take their share, and they don't voluntarily contribute towards the establishment of the business itself. Now, that creates a problem because you find that even if when you give lectures, like there's a soapy or maybe a film that you normally would find that in one of the SAB, what you call Boss Undercover. And if you follow what the other people are doing, you come to understand they've got an understanding of the entire picture, and they are contributing more often than not is positive, unlike what you find in most of the people. I'll listen on the radio. Thank you.
He makes very good points, doesn't he? Because so often people just go to do their bit of the work and they don't understand the overall objectives or vision of the company.
And that's potentially a failing on both sides. I think it's an important one to address in that you are looking for an engaged type of employee, one that is interested in the big picture, one is interested in the processes of your business. At the same time, the business needs to come to the fore and actually say, this is what we're about, these are the projects that we do. And that communication is critical, and it really comes down to open discussion with peers. Specific to grads, I think it's quite important that graduates, they're new, they're fresh, they're coming out of an environment where university was hard work and sometimes fun. Straight into a corporate life or a business life, it's going to take time. I remember coming out of varsity and being very green, wanting to change the world, which is great. Embrace that.
Yeah.
Look at the ideas of how to look at that new energy that they bring to the business. At the same time, they're coming to you to work for you and are representative of your business. So they should be able to also sway a bit and be tolerant to the fact that it's an education process. Experience is not an overnight process. It's something that's born out of learning, failing, paying the school fees, and
getting up and doing it again.
Exactly. Yeah, pulling your socks up when required, and celebrating also when there's a win.
Yeah.
And celebrating as a company really does bond you together. And that does connect, and that it's maybe a bit of ignorance, I think, or potentially sometimes an ego. But you'll find that the energy is worth the reward worth the effort that you're putting into hiring these the new staff base.
I'm sure you'd agree that the ideal, or I would imagine the ideal, to be a nice mix or balance between young up-and-coming minds and the more experienced and traditional way of doing things.
Yes, I think that there's a time to fix the toaster and there's a time to let it be. When it requires that, you'll see that the innovation comes for the younger generation. They see the world in a very different light. But at the same time, you have the legacy or the older generations coming to the party and saying, we've been through that before. You can experience it, but we're going to save you some time. We've burnt our fingers, sticking our hands in the toaster trying to fix it. So there are lessons to be learned on both sides. And I think it's about timing. When do you embrace and listen to what's required? And that balance between those two, we're finding, is also shifting towards the newer innovative things than the traditional way of doing business.
An SMS reads, does Intellect offer bursaries?
We actually run what we call the Intellect Foundation. So we channel all our charitable efforts through our own foundation. We look to school and mentor scholars throughout school. We have looked at a few of our own foundation members for bursaries. However, it's one of those ideas that please contact us, send us your CV. If you're in the technology or software development, or if that interests you in that field, please make contact with us, and we'll look to either guide you, and where possible, we'll look at the financial guidance or putting you in touch with someone that can.
And how do you know in what direction you should be disrupting your business?
It's a bit of hard introspection. I think it's very easy to fall back in the business as usual. It's taking time out to actually look at it from an external perspective, to actually look at how your client base or how your staff is interacting with your business, and being quite critical about that.
And honest.
I think it's honesty is very skewed often by just meeting the targets. Getting the profits in. It's very important to have that external view, and there are consultants to that for you. However, you know your business best. You know what's failing, and you know about the competitors which are coming up and taking your market share. And the warning's out there. If you're not on par with a new disruptive client, you might be behind the curve. So you need to get your foot on the accelerator and actually catch up and do some disruption.
Thank you very much. I mean, I had no idea about this concept of disrupting your business, and now I've learned something today. Thank you very much for coming through, Mr. Mark Baird, General Manager, Business Development at Intellect, talking about how you can disrupt your business, the business for it to thrive and succeed.